Hello there, everybody. I'm going to play a little game called Firewatch. The game is from last year. It was one of my favorite games, and came out of the studio that is named Campo Santo. And I have played it before, but I have never played it on the PlayStation 4 Pro. So I'm going to start a new game here. But the cool thing is that they have actually included some audio tapes um, in this new version. I don't know when the update has come out, um, so that you'll actually be able to hear all of those audio tapes. But I love things like that. It was part of my favorite things in Grim Fandango to just hear Tim Schafer talk about how the game was developed, and they actually did the same here. So I'm actually pretty excited to see how this one plays out. I've played this before, so I'm going to do something different than I did last time in these answers. So if you haven't played this before, this is just some sort of an epilogue, a little story of who you actually are. So here you get to choose. You are drunk, and so you have to choose between. So what's your major, or you're pretty? I'm just going to say that you're pretty. You're pretty, she says coolly. You're not. Your future. Hangover. What? You reply, confused. Someone should buy your cheeseburger, she says. She flags down a waiter, and 1 week later, you are Julia's boyfriend. So it's actually a pretty straightforward game. But the reason why it got to me is actually the story is just fantastic, and it took me places that I actually didn't know the game could actually take me. But the reason why I'm hesitating right now is because there's supposed to be an audio guide right here. Why it isn't there, I have absolutely no idea. I'm sorry. I will just quit to main menu because there's something wrong. Yeah, you see there? It was supposed to be an audio log, but I forgot to turn it on. So welcome back, guys. This is Firewatch. Off to a great start in this game. So I'm just gonna play this whole thing through once more. Luckily, I know that there was supposed to be an audio guide in the beginning. But once the game actually starts, I'm not going to talk a lot. Of course, when the audio logs are done, I'm going to say a little bit, but mainly I don't like to talk a lot in my videos. Pick it up. Open Sesame. And here we go. That's what I wanted. So, I'm going to take this.
Hello there, welcome to the Firewatch audio tour. My name is Rich Summer. I voiced the character of Henry, the guy that you're currently controlling with those buttons there. And I'll be chatting with you in a little bit. Thanks for checking it out.
So, I was just going to turn my volume up, and I advise you to do the same. So, here he's going to drop his backpack. That's not going to fall out at all. You date for over a year. She drives you absolutely nuts. It's great. You move in, you share an apartment near school with a view of the mountains. You two drink beers out on the deck. You drink beer just about anywhere. Life is good. So as you can see here, life is good. I mean, you drink maybe a little too much, but you love Julie, and you just think here it's just a straightforward game. You see, Julie wants to get a dog. Of course your girlfriend wants to. And she can have what she wants. A little beagle. And I will love him too. Talk out on the deck. It's summer, 9:30 p.m. and the heat still radiates off the high desert. What do you think about kids, he asks. Kids still not very smart. So, last time I think I said one day. So, I'm going to say that would be pretty cool. Again, happy story. I promise you it's going to change a little bit. Okay, so we'll zoom. Here we have some early intro concepts and storyboards. As you can see here, we're supposed to have this small store in the beginning for backpacking, the back of the trunk. Come to drive here. I don't think that you actually do that in the main game. Oh no, don't. The intro logic. Okay. Firewatch backstory idea. This right here is actually in the game also. So I'm going to take this, shut up and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Sean Vanneman. I wrote the bulk of 100% of this game.
Hey, I'm Jake Rodkin. I did a lot of level design, UI design, and worked with everyone on the story for Firewatch.
The game has this weird structure that Chris and I talk about in another tape. This is the first thing I wrote, was this opening of the game that jumps between Henry's life and the trip out to the woods. And I used a little product called Twine to do that, which you can download and use. It's just a very simple choose your own adventure tool. The simplest way to program a video game that one can then share with friends and play.
I think we were worried that the team would sort of perceive Henry as a blank slate, as sort of a generic game player protagonist, and we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to get in everyone's mindset, you're playing as a specific guy with a specific life.
Yeah, there's a reason when you play video games that a lot of your protagonists have amnesia, because it's really difficult when you're driving a character around who knows things about their life, or his or her life, that you, who you ostensibly are that person, don't know. So yeah, we kept trying to write an opening of the game that happened sort of like weeks into Henry's experience, and then quickly realized that it was like, well, why would he not be able to say X? Well, because his relationship with his wife is Y. So, but the player doesn't know that. Yeah. And this was the quickest way to get everybody on board, was to just take the thing that I wrote that answered the question, I think, for Jane and you at the beginning, which was like, who is Henry? And I would write these character profiles that were really bad. And then I went, what if I just let you play a thing? And then you can figure out who he is. And we held on to that until we had the idea to put into the game.
It means that when you're playing Firewatch and Henry and Delilah start talking about Henry's wife, you don't have to learn it through his dialogue, because you made the choices that brought him where he is today. Hi, it's Jake again.
Hey, I'm Chris Remo.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Hi there. I was a game designer and the music composer on Firewatch.
Nice.
So you're hearing now the first piece of interactive music that went into Firewatch. The first piece of music that actually
responds to what you're doing in the game?
Exactly, yeah. So this is a piece of music that's divided into technically 6 parts. And what's happening is, as you're playing through this introductory sequence, when you hit certain points in the narrative, it sends a signal to Wise, which is the name of the audio middleware we're using. And then when Wise gets that signal, it waits until the next sort of musically appropriate transition point, and then when it hits that, it smoothly transitions into the next section of music, and so it creates the effect that you're just listening to one big long piece of music that just happens to be timed very nicely
It just
to your
happens.
playthrough.
It just happens to get sadder and sadder at the exact rate that your life gets sadder and sadder.
Yeah, exactly. This was a challenging process, both because I had no idea what the music should sound like, and also because it was the first interactive piece of music in the game. So the technical sort of just how does this work was also a part of it. But as it turned out, this music was changed. I mean, Jake, you may remember this. This music changed relatively little over the course of development in comparison to a lot of.
I think it started off as maybe 3 pieces and it expanded out to 5 over development. But other than that, it's one of the first things dropped in, shipped. Get ready to hear about that a lot on this commentary.
So the reason why I stopped it here is because it's been happy. You're beginning to wondering, why is Henry out in the forest? And you've just been mocked. You can see life is going down. The developers had just talked about the music. Life is going down. You want to have kids, but you get waylaid by work. Julie gets offered a job at Yale. Yale is in Connecticut, 2,000 miles away. It's a great job, associate department, yes, she wants to move. You absolutely do not. So, here, I mean, that's what I love. This could be a real life. And here is when the story gets to me. Julie is sent home from Yale on paid leave after having an episode. She lost it on a colleague for borrowing books that were important to her research. She didn't remember she had happily loaned them to him just 2 days prior, so something is going on here with Julie. She was found crying in the stairwell. You say that maybe you guys should talk to someone about it. You make macaroni and drink wine and try to forget about it. And after seeing multiple doctors and having many tests, they are worried. I'm sorry, my English is a little bit off. They are worried that Julia might be suffering from early onset dementia. She's 41. I mean, that's just life sometimes. Life can be so cruel. And as you, if you noticed, I had the choice between posing as He-Man or posing as a Victoria's Secret model. First time I played it, I was He-Man. If you're under 18, under 14 maybe, I want you to cover your eyes right now, because this is not going to get pretty. Your eyes will wander to his face, because this is going to be a picture of Henry. Don't let your eyes wander down to his crotch, okay? Trust me. Warning. Yep, that's a penis. Firewatch has everything. Bucket is getting older. Julie comments that it's kind of nice because she gets in less trouble around the house. A week later she goes back to the university. Julia's affliction gets worse. She can't remember things in class. Her research is in shambles. She drives her car to the next town over for no particular reason, as has to be brought home by the police. She's devastated. She's sent home on a permanent medical leave. Some days you get the Julie who calls you a dope and your unborn children little idiots. Other days you get a stranger. So it doesn't sound like Julie is such a great person. But dementia is, wow, no one deserved that. So her family wants to come over and visit her. For a while your friends come by, little things to brighten the day. She gets worse. You spend your days following Julie around the house. Blah blah blah. I can determine if she has to move into a full-time care facility. You're determined to take care of her by yourself. If I want to take care of her by myself, her family will visit me, and it's going to be a mess everywhere because Henry is going to bars, he's drinking beers, he's getting wasted every single night, so the house is a mess. That is what I did the first time. I'm going to move her into a full-time care facility. I think that he should be taking care of her by herself. It's still the beginning of her dementia. He can move her to a full-time care facility. I think the right choice right now should be to take care of her, but I'm going to take her to a full-time care facility. Let's see what happens then. I also like to wander in this game to see if there's something I missed. I know a lot of people who've played this actually missed a turtle that you can get as a pet. Yes, you can get a turtle. No. This is new. Her family agrees with your decision. You find a fantastic place in Boulder and move her there. You see her every day, then every other day. Wow. You go out to the bar with your old friends. It's not the same. You get the feeling that every wife tells her husband, "If you ever put me in a home like that Henry did, I will cut your balls off." You slowly decide not to see your old friend that much. Wow, so no matter what, it's just bad for Henry. Julia's sister Susan moves to Boulder to be close to her. She visits her every day. You go with her some of the time. Susan buys you an old typewriter and urges you to use. If you won't see a therapist, you won't. You always really like Susan. Months go by. Bucket dies. Wow, okay. Julia doesn't remember him when you tell her. Sometimes it takes her a minute to log in on you. In the back of your mind, you believe it's because you see her less and less. And seeing her less and less makes her forget you more, you think. Summer is coming, and you see an ad in the paper for a job. And that is why Henry is in. I'm waiting for a sign that says Firewatch. Thought it was here. It actually came. Okay, it didn't. That's my bad. Wow, Bucket dies. I didn't remember that he died. And this is my new home. So I'm going to turn this off again, because now you're going to hear about porta potties, toilets, and the ins and outs of lookout towers.
I'm Nels Anderson, and I was a designer and gameplay programmer on Firewatch.
I am Jane Ng, and I worked on the 3D environment art in Firewatch.
So you're likely standing at the base of your home away from home, your home in the wilderness. For all intents and purposes, more or less, this is basically just a real straight-up tower like they existed out in the woods, right?
Yeah, I think it is Portland. There's somebody in Portland who was very good about archiving a lot of blueprints about various type of fire lookouts of the state, and we got some, and that's how we started off building the the lookout tower, just by looking through how they were actually built.
It's slightly taller than a real one, right?
And we had to make quite a bit of adjustments because, for example, the stairway you see here, normally fire lookout stairways are not on the outside, but for more interesting gameplay and views for the player, we opted to change that. But ultimately we still wanted the tower to feel like a real tower, so we had to figure stuff like, hey, how does the plumbing actually work? How do they get water? Stuff like that. It actually is very important for a real tower.
And if you go look around the base of the tower, you will actually see a big old plastic cistern.
We are not a survival game of any sort, but it is important to make sure that like all that stuff is actually thought out so the space feels realistic.
Right. You don't want someone playing the game being like, wait a minute, there's no how does this guy drink? How is he not dead?
When I normally play video games, I'm always interested in stuff like, hey, where's the bathroom? So here we have the outhouse and you can go anywhere, but stuff like water is very important. So in a real fire lookout situation, what they do is they will use like a cistern, and they will capture rainwater from the roof, and you will actually see that we actually have a little pipe down from the roof, and we even have what they call a first flush filter being there, which is actually what they use.
That's my favorite kind of filter, really.
Yeah, I had to look up what do they do, because like once you go, okay, you collect rainwater from the roof, it won't be all nasty, and then oh hey, somebody already figured that out on how to collect rainwater. What do you know?
We actually visited a number of different lookout towers as we were like researching the game, and it was always very satisfying to see elements of things we saw in the real world and make their way back into the game, and vice versa.
So we also made sure to have a tab here, like a little faucet, where you can actually get water from the cistern.
Yeah, if you click on it, it will play an animation of a hand gripping a knob and water comes out for 2 seconds. Doesn't do anything,
Yeah.
but it's there.
I think for a while we actually were thinking like, should we just let the player turn on the water? Or then what happens if the water just runs out? And then James had a very good idea of just going like, oh, just make one animation that you turn on the faucet and turn it off immediately, just so that you know, hey, there's water in here and you won't die. That's Henry.
So I have actually played this with the developer diaries, and that's why I knew where to walk and what to show you. I played this first part when the night ends. I haven't played it, so I don't know where all the audio logs is. So maybe I'll miss some. As you can see here, sorry, there's nothing here right now. Check your map for today's tour stop. So I don't have a map yet, but I was wandering about, going off the beaten path, and then I came across the only other audio tape that was actually available. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. So I can wander in all of this right now. No, I mean down there's some boulders blocking my way, and there's also there, but at a point in the game that part will open up, so I can't go pretty much anywhere right now, only in this area, but they will discuss this in this tape.
Hey, it's Chris again.
Oh, it's Jake.
So, if you're listening to this right now, it's because you went off the beaten path really early in the game. Obviously, you probably did that because the commentary map told you to. But
you don't need a map to tell you to go here. You could just go here.
We had to. One of the biggest challenges in this game was throughout the entire narrative, keeping in mind that really players can pretty much go anywhere that they've unlocked on the map at any time, and sometimes that's actually really inconvenient for the narrative of the game. We had to come up with a lot of excuses for why you couldn't go to certain places at certain times, or if we couldn't think of an excuse.
Some call it an excuse, others call it a thrilling narrative event.
Right. So, for instance, where you are right now, if you keep walking in that direction, you will sort of cross the river, but then be unable to go any further. Because
there's like a lot of dense underbrush.
And then about halfway through the game, when a big fire happens, that area is burned out, and you can walk past it into Cottonwood Creek and
Pork Pond, etc.
And all those areas. Yeah, it was really, really hard to think of justifications like that that weren't completely implausible.
Yep.
And so we actually have relatively few cases of that in the game.
Yeah, if we couldn't come up with a good way to keep a player out of a space, we instead flipped the other direction and went, well, what can we do to support it and make it interesting? On this day, before the story started, not a whole lot, but we thought it was fun to point out that you can wander a lot more of the map than you might even think at the very, very, very start of the game.
Yep, and then especially once you get ropes, that increases a lot more. So just as you get these items that allow you to explore more of the world, we had to face these increasingly complicated and frustrating design challenges of how does the whole game not break all the time now. It was interesting and difficult, but also cool.
Yep, bye.
So that was actually something new for me. I didn't know that I could actually watch on the map which audio tours was available. It's actually pretty cool. So yeah, I just wanted to see if something else happened here. Oh. Sorry.
I'm Nels Anderson, and I was a designer
Sorry.
and gameplay programmer on Firewatch.
Shut up.
Ing, and I worked on the 3D environment art in
Can I
Firewatch.
stop it? Oh my god, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're home away from home. You're home in the wilderness. For all intents and purposes, more or less, this is basically just a real straight-up tower like they existed out in the woods, right?
Yeah, I think it is Portland. There's somebody in Portland who was very good about archiving a lot of blueprints about various type of fire lookouts of the state, and we got some, and that's how we started off building the Firewatch. The lookout tower, just by looking through how they were actually built.
It's slightly taller than a real one, right?
We had to make quite a bit of adjustments because, for example, the stairway you see here, normally fire lookout stairways are not on the outside, but for more interesting gameplay and views for the player, we opted to change that. But ultimately we still wanted the tower to feel like a real tower, so we had to figure stuff like, hey, how does the plumbing actually work? How do they get water? Stuff like that. It actually is very important for a real tower.
And if you go look around the base of the tower, you'll actually see a big old plastic cistern.
We are not a survival game of any sort, but it is important to make sure that all that stuff is actually thought out, so the space feels realistic.
Right. You don't want someone playing the game being like, wait a minute, there's no how does this guy drink? How is he not dead?
When I normally play video games, I'm always interested in stuff like, hey, where's the bathroom? Here we have the outhouse, and you can go anywhere.
I really regret this.
So in a real
I can't turn it
fire
off.
situation, what they do is they will use like a cistern, and they will capture rainwater.
I don't edit my videos. I want this to be uncut,
We actually have a little pipe down
so you can
below.
actually experience
We even
me
have what they
going
call a
through
flash
hell right now.
filter being there, which is actually what they use.
That's my favorite kind of filter, really.
I had to look up what do they do, because once you go, okay, you collect rainwater from the roof, that want to be all nasty, and then hey, somebody already figured that out on how to collect rainwater. What do you know?
We actually visited a number of different lookout towers as we were researching the game, and it was always very satisfying to see elements of things we saw in the real world and make their way back into the game, and vice versa.
So we also made sure to have a tab here, like a little faucet, where you can actually get water from the cistern.
Yeah, if you click on it, it will play an animation of a hand gripping a knob and water comes out for 2 seconds. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's there.
I think for a while we actually were thinking should we just let the player turn on the water, or then
Please
what
don't
happens
quit
if the
this
water
video.
Just runs out?
Just
and then, and then
turn it
James
off,
had a very good idea of just going
the
just
sound,
make
and
one animation that
put on some music.
turn on the
And then
faucet and turn it off immediately, just so you know, hey, there's water in here.
This
and you
looks
won't
like
die. It's Henry.
the raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy. So just hooked on a feed. Oh, okay, she stopped. So what happened before was the other person in the other tower was named Delilah. She introduced herself, and they have a little chat, and she actually guessed right that Henry is here for a purpose, and that is to write a novel. So, I'm going to talk to... Oh, that's nice. The book is right there. One I actually threw on the ground. So let's talk to her again.
Hey, sorry, guess I slept in.
You got a relaxing, 14 hours of sleep? Whew.
Yeah, Jesus, I guess it's what, 6?
6:45.
Whoops.
Don't worry about it. That hike puts everyone out of commission for a day or two. But now that you're up, let me quickly get you acquainted with the job. There's a thing in the middle of your room with a round map on it. Do you see it?
Okay, yeah, I see it.
This is the Osborne Firefinder, invented in 1914 by W.B.
Osborne?
You use this to spot, you guessed it, What the fuck?
What is it?
Nothing. You use this to... Oh, fuck me!
Good God, language, lady.
Out your west-facing window. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are those fucking fireworks?
Whoa, that's not legal, right?
No. You need to get down there right now and stop them. Fire danger is through the fucking roof.
Is that really my job?
Your job is whatever I say it is. Look, the closest ranger is like 2 days away. Go down there and set him straight.
Do I write him a ticket?
Easy there, Dirty Harry.
Well?
Get going. You'll probably need a rope to get down the shale between you and the lake, if I remember right. There should be one in the supply box on the way. The code is 1234. It's actually that for all of them.
Secure.
Shut up.
And finally something is happening. So, the next one is the actual life of a fire lookout.
Nels, it feels like you on the team did the most sort of digging about what the real job is like, what is in the actual space, and then checked us against reality when we kind of went off the reservation.
In general, I really like doing research. That's sort of a thing I've enjoyed on all the projects I've worked on. So for this, a bunch of folks on the team read this great book called Fire Season by Philip Connors, which is kind of like a memoir-ish thing from this dude who still is an active fire lookout even today. But I also just, I called up the Ministry of Forests and Natural Resources here in British Columbia and got redirected to like 3 increasingly small Ministry of Forest offices until someone just gave me literally the phone number of this cool old lady who had once been a fire lookout. So I just kind of chatted with her for like an hour and a half just about what doing the job was like. The reason why the game is not a simulation of being a fire lookout is because what everyone talks about is that the #1 challenge with the job is that it is incredibly, impossibly boring.
Because you can't like read a book, you can't like be doing other things, right? Like
Not really.
Yeah.
At the end of day 3, where Delilah mentions it's like, Kenny's like, well, what do I do for the rest of the summer? She's like, you sit in that chair and you look out the window. That is actually what fire lookouts really do. So all the folks I talked to said like, figuring out ways to combat boredom is the #1 thing. The lady I talked to, she said she did a whole lot of needlepoint and cross stitch because you can do that without looking at your hands very much. Obviously, like, lookouts are also responsible for doing, maintenance on their towers. But again, it's like not maintenance because some crazy Yahoo smashed up your tower. It's maintenance like, oh, the paint is kind of flaking off, better paint it. Or these trees have grown too tall, so I need to chop them down. Not, I'm chopping down trees to form a weird log bridge.
The main takeaway from whenever we would talk to someone who had done this job is, why would you make a game about that? That is the most boring time of my entire life. So hopefully we showed them how.
It feels like people who do this job like fall into 2 camps, right? They're the people who think they can do it and can't hack it and bail after like a month or 2. People like Jack Kerouac, who tried to do this and wrote about it in Desolation Angels, and then he went crazy from a lack of cigarettes and then left. Or the people who kind of enjoy the solitude and then figure out ways to deal with it. But, you know, we do have, like, a lot of the window dressing for the stuff people use. Like, other folks I talk to, it's like, what do you do? Well, we read a lot of books, and we, like, trade the books between the different lookouts through rangers and stuff like that. So, of course, Firewatch has a crap ton of weird books in it. Stuff like that.
You're a man, Henry. You can go wherever you want. Well, number one at least. And, full disclosure, I pee wherever I want as well.
You know, I don't think there's any fictional character I hate more than Forrest Burns.
Henry, as an employee of the Forest Service, that is treason.
Yeah, well, he really freaked me out as a kid.
He inspired me to spend the bulk of my 30s keeping the wilderness safe.
A shrink would have a field day with you.
Thanks, Mom.
Chris again here.
Hey, and Jake, congratulations, player. You have completed the Teen Loop.
Oh man, that's true. This is the end of what was originally called teenloop.unity, a scene file in our game engine Unity, because we thought that was just going to be the file corresponding to the first
this piece of game that you've just played.
Yeah, this first big objective.
But then we kept building, so all of Firewatch is in fact saved inside of a file called teenloop.unity. So
Yep,
know that
entire
for the
game.
rest of your play experience, you are inside of the Teen Loop.
Yeah. This part of the game, you probably are right now if you're listening to these commentary notes basically in sequence. The music is either about to kick in or has just kicked in. It's dark. You're finding your tower's been broken into. This, I really strongly remember feeling when this went into the game and had the music, which was actually the first music implemented in the entire game. All this stuff together felt to me like the first real moment of assertive tension in the game, and it felt really crazy.
Yeah, because we
to me.
had our environment system working for the first time, so the sky turned to nighttime,
Yep.
and our world logic allowed the tower to switch into its broken into state just when you were off in the world for the first time. And then when that music finally came in, we're like, oh, wow, okay, this is a world that's alive and can be tense and cinematic.
Yep.
And all of it happened without us ever having to cut the camera. I remember we were all very proud and stoked of that.
For sure.
That was like right before we first demoed the game, I think, at the Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, because the end of day one was the end of the first demo.
Yeah.
Right before this, there's the moment with the creepy guy in the woods, and that was sort of a moment of tension. But that's also arguably maybe not, because it's immediately deflated by Delilah.
Right, but this, you're like,
was like,
holy crap.
Okay, I remember feeling kind of nervous about it because it was like the game is declaring this is a tense moment, and if it falls flat, we have failed. We can't like make a joke to diffuse it. And I think it basically worked, and it was a real relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 ba.
So, another thing just happened. I was a little bit afraid that some of them weren't actually supposed to be there all the time. I thought that maybe, okay, so in this sequence I actually have to listen to all of these, but it turns out because these guys just spoiled something. Wait. It says that I haven't listened to number 4. I have listened to number 4. God. I'm just going to walk back, and if it's the two boy and a girl talking again about the goddamn outhouse and porta potty, I'm going to flip out. So yeah, I'm sorry about that once again. I'm going to take them in order right now, and hopefully I won't miss something. Please don't be the same ones.
Hey, it's Jake again.
And it's Jane again.
All right, let's talk about Two Forks Lookout. I mean, we could just talk about lookout towers
Thank
in
you.
general in
Yes.
video games. Well, you built it. You want to talk about it?
Yes. So lookout towers have standard sizes, actually. I think most of these were either 14 feet by 14 feet in the inside, or something like 7. Like there's actually
Like
a
tiny,
standard.
wow.
Yeah, the cabins have standard sizes, and the ones that you have a bed and stay in are the 14 feet ones. And we realized through a few experiments that if you make a space that's actually 14 feet in the game, it would be too tiny.
Yeah, I remember you found a lookout tower enthusiast website that had posted the actual blueprints that the state parks and forest service used. So we're like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're building it to scale.
Yes.
It's
And
tiny. You can't move around.
It's tiny, and then basically the camera just has no room to maneuver at all.
Yeah, and you just feel like a fat guy, like you can't fit between your desk and the firefighter.
Yeah, and it feels like you're just in a shoebox. So we did a few experiments. I was like, okay, how about it's twice as big? And when it's twice as big, and it's just like no.
Palatial
Yeah,
fire lookout cribs.
And then like on the outside, the silhouette of the space also looks wrong. So we ended up with I think something like 1.5 size bigger than real life, and it feels like a real fire lookout.
Over the course of the game, as things change, there's a bunch of variants of the tower too, right? I mean, simple stuff like the broken window, but then also we move furniture around. Henry gets moved in over the time.
Yeah, there are different states of the interior, and we achieved that by actually swapping out the whole interior set. Like 7 or 8 times, I think.
A lot of times.
As the game moves on, then more and more of his stuff starts showing up, and then Henry is a slob, and so his like undies are everywhere and all
Window
this
gets broken, window gets fixed,
Exactly.
conspiracy board goes up. Yeah, and dirty socks get all over the place. Just tell the story of some slobby dude up here.
Exactly.
See, this is what I love about the developer commentary. I mean, it's just funny to hear about those stuff. That the room was actually too small if it was supposed to be the right size. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay. I found a note.
Hey, I found a note to a guy named Ron from some guy Dave.
That's probably Dave Gaskell. He's completely nuts.
Is that right?
Harmless, but yeah, one of those, fall off the grid and eat ants for a week type. Totally fucking cuckoo. Which is kind of what the job attracts.
Oh, I could actually eat this. I did not know that I could eat that granola bar. So, sorry, Ron. I'm don't going to leave this open. His name wasn't Ron. Oh, that's right. So, number 5, the cache box, land of first and secrets.
Hi there, it's Jake.
And Chris again.
Hey, so here we are in the cache box clearing, or at least I guess that's what we call it. There's a lot of cache boxes in Firewatch, but this was the first one that we placed into the game.
For a long time, this was the cache box.
It was the cache box, even though we knew we wanted to have more. This area was actually one of the first areas that we built out to any degree that looks like a piece of the world. It was a really good proving ground for us. Like when me and Nels Anderson were grayboxing the world at the very beginning, we tried a million different things. Like maybe this was on the edge of a cliff, or maybe it was a secret that you had to find. And I think it was Sean who suggested that he really wanted it to feel like a warm, sort of enclosed space, like you've stumbled onto a little glen and you want to stay there for a while, which I think makes sense because we wanted people to actually stop and poke around and have it not feel like the woods.
This was an area with a lot of firsts. I remember this really ended up looking a lot like Ollie's concept art in a way I think that felt like an accomplishment when it all got built out. It was also the first audio I implemented in the entire game, I believe.
The Foley on the locks and the lid?
Right, exactly.
Oh, this was, man, this was also, the cache box was also our proving ground for detailed object interaction with Henry animating the lock. And also, there is an exit out if you back up and turn left. That was the first time I prototyped one-way drops and also any like sort of secret paths, because the way that you cross the canyon also showed up here, and I didn't tell anyone on the team about it for like months, and people only noticed it once they started playing the back half of the game, and it was very fulfilling for me.
Nice.
Cache box.
Cache box, land of firsts and secrets.
That's the state flag of cache boxes.
It sounds like a fucking bear every time that goes up. much fireworks do these kids? Oh, no, that's not kids. It's nothing. No spoilers from me.
I take it you fell prey to the Forest Service's big recruiting
Did it
effort
just say
when
that
it comes to,
there was
how the hell you
a
ended up out here?
path? What? A medicine wheel.
Wow, there's an old, I think
Oh.
it's called a medicine wheel out here. I saw the job in the paper and figured, you know, what the heck.
What the heck? I've got no ties and no life. Better go spend what's left of it in utter loneliness.
Something like that.
Yeah, thanks to last summer, the bump in Forest Service budget actually allowed for us to advertise for the job. Glad it worked.
What happened last summer that accounted for this, windfall?
Jeez. I mean, the federal government almost let Yellowstone National Park burn to the ground? Ring a bell?
Yellowstone is like, what, 15 miles away? Why would they do that?
Well, the short story is that for 60 years, we got very good at not letting forest fires happen. And then about 15 years ago, they decided that forest fires in wilderness areas like Yellowstone should be left to burn. So that's what they did. I can't believe you didn't hear about this. There were reports that the entire park was gone. Dan Rather telling the country that President Reagan didn't care on the nightly news. I mean, what the hell's he gonna do? Smoke jump in and snuff one out for the Gipper?
So what should they have done?
I don't even know. By the time the Yellowstone folks realized the little fires weren't gonna burn themselves out, 100,000 acres were gone. It's Yellowstone, you know? People don't want to touch it, but we touch it every single day. But hey, I got a 30 cents an hour raise because we can't have another fiasco. Like the goddamn park can burn down again.
I actually found that little drop that the developers was talking about. Kind of disappointed. I thought it was a bigger thing, but you know, it's a small game, it's a small team. I hope that you are enjoying this. I actually do. So, number 6, Firewatch's dynamic map or the Widowmaker.
Jake,
Oh, hey, Sean.
you did a neat thing here in the game that I like a lot, which is when you make a dialogue choice with Delilah about what this dangerous hill should be called. It shows up on your map, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, when we were putting the map system together, well, actually, the map weirdly was one of the latest things, one of the final things to come into the game as a fully fleshed out piece. But an upside of that is we built the map using a lot of tools we already had. For instance, the system that checks which things you haven't talked about, which things you haven't found in the game. Use the same variable list as our speech system. So when I was putting this together, I realized, oh, not only can I put a mark down on the map when Henry finds it or talks about it, but I can totally look at the same tools we use for dialogue and figure out what the player said and put it on the map. And the end result felt really natural. I actually wish we'd gone a little deeper on it in the game, but I'm really happy with what's in there right now. Also, please name this shitty boss who's gonna get me killed, because that's objectively the best name for the hill.
Is that your handwriting?
Yeah, you gotta cram that in there, but it's still readable.
Hey,
What the hell's wrong with you?
Widowmaker got the best of me.
What exactly happened?
My rope snapped coming down the shale slide.
You didn't break anything, did you?
No, I think I'll make it.
Well, be careful for Christ's sake.
So, that is the last one for today. You can see here number 7. Sorry, there's nothing here right now. So, I hope I actually get to hear every single one of these parts. Okay. Is this the way I'm supposed to? No. No, that... Not yet. Oh, I'm not sure. So, I think that they actually want me to hear every single audio tour, so... I really want to listen to this one, but I have to wait. So, I can take a look at these pictures instead. It's actually pretty cool. I love stuff like this. So what do we have here? Beer cans.
Finding a bunch of empty beer cans. They threw them all over hell.
The idiots down at the lake?
Yeah, them. I just found where they're hanging out. You know what? Fuck it. I'm not the maid.
Could I actually... I don't remember actually be able to picking them up. I think that I remember saying to myself, why would he just leave them there? I actually don't think that you were able to put all of those spears in your pocket. Two
They left the
backpacks.
packs tied up here.
Don't fuck with them. The last thing we need is some hikers filing a report about harassment.
Oh, I'm going to fuck with them.
Oh, look. They decided to have a campfire, too.
You know, they color-coded the fire danger signs in case people were illiterate. But I guess that doesn't take into account just plain stupid, does it?
Wait. I actually saved that. Stomp it up. I actually saved the whiskey. Oh, I'm going to go home and write. Can I pee on it?
Well, I put out their fire.
Man, I would have named that forest fire something good, too.
Hey, I can always restart it.
No. I think your first instinct was the right one.
Found the fireworks. They didn't even try to hide them.
Ugh. Well, confiscate them.
And I think that I actually can take
Well, they
their
left their
clothes.
clothes out to dry. It looks like two people. What if they're naked?
Won't that be exciting? Look, they're obviously still there, so tell them off and then head back.
I found a bra.
A nudie pyromaniac. Remain professional.
Can I save the bra for later also?
There are, panties.
Or what?
I don't want to say that word again.
Why, 'cause you're 12?
Oh, so it's two girls.
Ooh,
Yes?
there are two naked ladies out here.
Can you handle that?
Come on, I like naked ladies, same as anyone, but there's, you know,
2?
yeah.
I know this will be tough for you, but try to pick your tongue up off the ground and do your job.
Okay.
It actually looks like they're fairies or something like that.
I found them in the lake.
Skinny dipping.
Yeah.
Is that a guy over there?
Oh boy. Enjoy dealing with that.
See, I can take number 9, but why is there number 8? I don't understand this. I'm going to take the tape. And then hopefully you can follow the story.
My name is Patrick Ewing. I worked on tools and gameplay programming.
The teens, Patrick.
Let's open some old wounds here.
This is like going back to like an old battleground and being like on these
Exactly.
hallowed grounds.
Yeah, I
Bad
died on
things
this hill.
happened. I died on this hill.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most complex interactions in the game, if not the most, right?
Yeah.
And it was in the game from the very first vertical slice we did, and then I think we kind of added to it as we played through it and saw like, oh, we should be able to throw the boombox in the lake, obviously, right? Okay, the teens need to react to the boombox being in the lake. Oh, but then they should also react to you putting it down.
What you should do if you're making a video game is build relatively ironclad, predictable AI and systems that react to inputs. But instead, we built a series of relatively flimsy state machines that were like, if this, if this, if this, but not when, and also if.
Right.
And we're able to create the scene as designed. And Patrick was sort of the shepherd of this scene. So whenever anything would break, if you were to throw the boombox and the teens were not to respond, or you leave with the boombox and they would talk about something else. It was Patrick's job to ferret into the
Right.
state machine and
Right.
figure out what was going on.
Yeah, and I'm happy with how it turned out. There are so many different ways that this scene can play out now, depending on what you choose to do. Do you throw the fireworks at them? Do you talk to them and then start messing up their stuff and throwing it in? And it ends up being pretty like believable. They feel like real characters. It's just such a crazy spaghetti code in the back end that I'm always terrified when I see someone play through it, that there's some interaction that we didn't think about.
That right now the player is interacting with the teens in a way that is completely not by the book. And
I mean, luckily
the
we
beads
haven't.
of sweat or building on your brow.
Yeah, I think it's just a PTSD response at this point. We would see the bug reports if this was actually still breakable.
Yeah.
Last night when I welcomed you to the job.
Yeah, well, you're not the first boss to be guilty of that.
I know, I know I can get a little pushy, putting you on the spot about why you're out here and stuff.
It's fine.
I'll keep that sort of a thing to a minimum. Anyway, let me know when you get back to your lookout.
I really don't know if I should listen to the audio tapes. I mean, number 15 was in the beginning and it's not there right now. Oh, wait.
Hey, I heard some thunder.
Yeah, I've got eyes on a storm out to the north.
Well, that's bad, right? Because of the lightning?
It just means we'll be busy. Hurry home and try not to get hit by lightning.
I got hit by lightning when I was 9 years old, so I'm safe. It's not gonna strike twice and all that.
Well, there was an old lookout named Roy Sullivan who got hit by lightning 7 times.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, well, if it makes you feel any better, it wasn't what killed him.
What killed him?
Suicide. Would you believe?
I actually don't have a lot of time left. I'm recording this on my PlayStation 4. The maximum I can actually take to record is 1 hour or so. If I just stop suddenly, you know why. I want to say thank you for watching.
Hello?
Once again, I don't know. Cave stick, fucking drop it. This is going to be another major thing later on. And here something is going. Nope. Nothing will happen. So what will happen if this video just gets caught off any minute now? Yes, you can see right here, there's a figure.
There's some guy out here giving me the creeps.
So there's a little mystery.
The creeps?
Yeah, I came out of this cave in a canyon and he was just...
Creeping? Wait, he's looking at you? Is he doing anything else?
I don't think so.
Henry, there's...
I love the little details in Firewatch's branching dialogue. There are a lot of very subtle, hard to notice things that Sean put in while writing it that you really couldn't notice without multiple playthroughs, but they add up to this feeling that you're talking to real people who, just like real people, kind of echo back things you said earlier, who continue in jokes that have been established, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the subtlest that I don't think I even noticed till I was rewiring the game midway through is the spooky figure who you meet towards the end of day one.
Spooky figure. If the teens call you a creep, Henry calls the guy who's putting a flashlight in his face a creep.
Right.
And he goes, "There's some guy out here creeping," or he says something like, "He's a creep out here." She's like,
Yeah.
"A creep, Henry." He's like,
Right.
"Yeah, there's a guy who's spooking me out here. I don't like it." And I mean, I like doing stuff like that. I pay a lot of attention to the sort of infectiousness of language.
Yeah.
Especially in this office, someone will start using a turn of phrase that then I'll be at lunch with someone later, or I'll be out with Jake or whatever, and then I'll hear the phrase
Theory crafting.
through them,
Yeah.
you know, where it's like, like if somebody was saying, "Oh, there was a total creep outside at the bus stop," then it wouldn't be long, like 18 hours later, it would be totally conceivable to hear Jake be like, oh yeah, that guy's kind of a creep. I don't know if we should have him by or whatever.
Yep.
And I'd be like, man, okay, like that word is now like bubbling along the surface of our social network here. And people are like that. People are weird, sort of like passive, like non-participatory sponges sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just like putting that stuff in the writing. And you can do that in games in a way that you can't do that in other media. If you do that in like a book or something, it's so double underlined that it feels like you're making a big point as an author. But in a game, because it's player driven and it's passive, it just feels causal and